Don't know if some of you are thinking what I'm thinking, but thank you, Michael, for introducing me as Stewart Hutcheon and not Gary Horwitz. Just in case, I'd been brushing up actually on my South African accent and my knowledge of Barangaroo, and it's fortuitous probably that Gary's not here because I could get going if you like it. It was going to go something like this: let me tell you something about Barangaroo. It's probably a pretty poor attempt, sorry, Morris and Sam and Hilton and Ronnie and who other South Africans in the room, but I know you won't mind, Michael, that I wanted to sort of square things up there. Yeah, there's probably three legs to the business that I'll talk to quickly, as well as the retail and industrial merger that we've done inside the platform. So starting off probably with city retail, that is core to our being. We obviously create a lot of value up into the office towers as a consequence of what we do on the ground floor planes. And so our investment into what we do in what you see on the street is very much mindful of the renewal probabilities, rents, etc., that we can create in the towers, such that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And I pretty much say something like that every year to tell you how we're thinking through it. Eagle Street Piers planning is coming along really, really well. Up in Brisbane, it's going to be iconic for that city and for the towers around it. Carillion Arcade's coming out of the ground really, really nicely in its planning phase over in Perth, and I think we'll be hitting the leasing market early next year, hopefully, as WA and Perth with the commodities upswing comes good. And we're very happy with lots of other stuff, 360 Collins Street and all the things we've done in Melbourne, 385 Burke Street QV's on fire as a consequence of the remix. There's quite a few Gateway, etc. Australia Square's going well. And obviously, we're very proud of our new Tiffany store. It's well worth a look on the corner of King and Pitt Streets. We're really happy with the way we're able to bring a customer from 39 Martin Place after a compulsory acquisition down into that corner and keep them on board as a great customer. But swinging over to MLC Centre, obviously we're really proud to be bringing that onto the platform, and I think we're looking forward to hopefully delivering this city and country something that is better than what we've seen before, as we should as the brand new development on the block. So that's going to be challenging, but it's going to be a terrific outcome because, let's face it, it's nearly a hectare of land right in the middle of the Sydney CBD, and you don't get the chance to get a hold of that every day. So it's a big part of our platform city. Might pause there just for a sec to tell you how I learned a little bit more about MLC Centre, because I was having lunch with Michael, I don't know, some time during the process through which we were looking at this last half share, and I was telling him about MLC, and he said, he took his glasses off and he goes, Stu, he says, I don't know if you really know about MLC Centre. I said, what do you mean? And so the story goes somewhere like this. I think it's worth sharing with the room because it does kind of go to the heritage and pedigree that is around us. I don't know if you know, but some of you might, but in 1973 or 4, when MLC Centre was being conceived, Dick Dusseldorp and his team were on the top floor of Australia Square, where our offices are now, and they decided they needed to position the building, being the new MLC Centre, as the premium tower. And they couldn't hire anybody that really could get what they were thinking about, and they interviewed Lloydie, and he's the only guy who turned up in a Ferragamo jacket and Gucci loafers, and so they figured that on that basis alone they'd hire him, and he went down to Double Bay and convinced them all they were suffering from separation from the city 7 kilometres away, and bring them up into town would create this thing. And now what you got today really is this Castlereagh Street fronted luxury brand precinct that really actually happened as a consequence of his hard efforts, because it was a really hard grind. Give him a clap. The internal portfolio, we've kind of been fortunate enough to get our developments out of the way up to about a couple of years ago, and we've positioned the centres, I think, as well as we could have to compete as well as they can in their trade areas at Willows, Smithfield, Tweed, ELPs, and the different things we've done. They've all had their fair level of investment in order to make sure that they can compete as effectively as they possibly can. So I'm really comfortable with the way that's rolling. The joint venture with Centre Group is equally in good shape. It's seen a lot of investment over the last little while, up until about a year ago. Fortunate to get through the the market at the time we did, and I think, you know, they're doing some, you know, some of the centres that we've got, like Miranda, it's a $7 billion trade area, and Southern Sydney absolutely owns its trade area. We're very pleased with the work that our partner and ourselves have been able to do together to create the products that we have. But what I wanted to do was turn to, as I said, the retail and industrial merger, because as a diversified player, our shareholders expect us to play to our strengths, and in the end, you know, we just see a market where the likes of Ralph want to have one conversation. So when we go and see them, we can talk about distribution centres and last mile, and we can talk about shopping centres and shops and city retail, where 180 metre formats, like you mentioned, in places like Kirribilli can be something we can deal to. So it's a single conversation. We call it ship to shop shelf. Product arrives at a port or in an airport, and ultimately, you know, comes via a distribution centre by way of e-fulfilment out to a customer or to a shopping centre onto a shelf and sold. So a simple process, and we just want to be able to partake in as much of that as we possibly can as a player. A way of example, we visited one of our sheds after a regular retail portfolio review meeting down in Melbourne, and then went on to their e-fulfilment centre where they're running their e-commerce from. We got several of them. But, you know, I was watching one package every 6 seconds with an average of $80 worth of product going through its mill, if you like. There's only about half a dozen people in this 30,000 metre place. And, you know, I think that we calculated it's about 12,500 stock movements a day. It's nearly $1 million a day. If they keep that momentum, that's big money, like 300 million plus a year on an occupancy cost of, say, 1.5%. So there's no doubt, you know, this is a place where the world is going. They can't do it, that particular brand, without their massive store networks, because that's the brand that people know in order to go and click in the first place, and how they figured out what the product is and where the stock returns go and all that kind of thing. But for us, it's one thing. We're a diversified player. That's what we're playing to. As the bigger picture goes, you know, I think the share price is performing well. We're confident and not arrogant in our strategy. I think it's investors telling us, you know, they like what we're doing and keep doing more on it. So we'll keep on keeping on. Thank you.